It's been really slow, yeah. I mean, at one point, maybe 45, 50, as you mentioned, but really, since he's been off the freeway, it's slowed down dramatically. And now, underneath Rosecrans again, we'll see if he pulls back into these residential neighborhoods. But it still looks like the vehicle's, driving okay. I guess okay. But actually, that front left tire looks a little wobbly. What do you think, Rob? Can we push in there? It does look like that front tire is starting to lose air, Mark. Is it my imagination? It appears a little bit wobbly, but again, it could be an optical illusion. Well, it's definitely not flat. That was a good close-up as he makes this illegal U-turn at Santa Fe Avenue, now going eastbound again on Rosecrans. You can count the units there, upwards of a half a dozen, as he slowly reverses course on Rosecrans and just barely making that right turn now onto McDivitt Avenue, another residential street. Picking up a little speed over that speed bump, but it does not look like those tires are running flat. The hazards, yeah, that's his hazard lights. They have been on for a chunk of time. I'm not sure if they were on at the very beginning, but they've been blinking for a little while. Those rear view mirrors, which we've mentioned, they have been hanging off by ever since that. I think ever since he made contact with those fences, but maybe even before that. So he has no rear view mirrors, just the one in his inside the vehicle. But yeah, the hazards are on. The lights have been on the whole time. Just difficult to see. We were able to get a glimpse of the passenger seat, which is empty. We don't know for sure whether those back seats are empty, but we will find out soon here. But in any event, he's now back onto Santa Fe Avenue. That's a northbound turn onto Santa Fe. Let's count once again, Mark, or Rob. I just want to see. He's got 3, 4, so the same 4 units. And by the way, I think some of these units may have actually been swapped out with the original. Since we originally joined you, I think these are some fresh units that have joined the pursuit, which is par for the course here once you switch into the CHP South LA division. Yeah, you would think, and look at the right rear, Mark. Look at the right rear that is now starting to smoke. You can see a little bit of smoke coming from the right rear, and I think maybe that rear tire may have been affected by the spike. The front tires appear intact. It's difficult to tell, especially at this time of the night, but it does look like there's some smoke now coming from that right rear rim as that tire may be deflating. He's now at Compton Boulevard, and there's a better shot. Look at that. Yeah, they're both. So the right tires hit the spike. It looks like maybe the left tires were spared, but both of those right tires, the front and the rear, are now basically down to the rim. The rubber's still on there, but there's no air left, and he is riding on those rims. That's where that smoke is coming from. That is going to dramatically affect the steering of this car. It's only I don't know exactly the model, but it's a Kia, maybe a slightly older model. Can't say for sure, but this vehicle, I think we can say now, is on borrowed time. It looks like the back seat's empty, but there's something. Is that his hand? I'm trying to make out what is sticking. Is that? I think that might be his cell phone, actually. It might be a shot of his cell phone through that front window, which is rolled down. I thought he was sticking it out the window for a second, but you can see the display from, I think, a cell phone. So he's driving with his right hand. Looks like he's got a cell phone in his left hand. And, you know, worth reiterating, the speeds still not really breaching 35 or 40 miles per hour. So it's turned into a bona fide joyride at this rate, but it's not going to end well for him, and he's not going to make it easy. You just don't get that impression, but again, hopefully he does. Hopefully he's using this time to think about things a little bit more clearly. But, you know, it takes all kinds, and if he's a career criminal and just is determined, then it could end differently. We'll see what happens, but in any event, those right tires are now done, and the speeds have been affected as he's now making his way down Long Beach Boulevard, northbound Long Beach Boulevard at about 30 miles per hour, coming up on Cedar Avenue here in Compton. And again, a fresh pursuit package now in tow. These are all from CHP's South LA division. Yeah, and the longer this goes on, I think there's no choice but to wonder why. Why haven't they done it sooner? Now, again, we're armchair quarterbacks. These guys are working with intelligence about the suspect, about the other crimes that may be involved here. A lot of information that we don't have. So, again, take all this with a grain of salt. But why are they letting this go so long when I have seen many opportunities for a very safe pit maneuver that would have brought this most likely to an end? Now, maybe it could be that after his maneuver earlier, they're thinking a little bit more carefully about that, because they know that if they're in a if they spin him out and he does like a 180 and he's then face to face with those officers, he has no problem, if the vehicle's still drivable, to ram right into those officers and pose a real danger to their life. So that's one consideration. I'm sure there's lots of considerations that the watch commander and the supervisors are discussing right now as to how they want to treat this. But in an environment where we have seen several fatalities on LA roadways as a result of police pursuits just in the last couple of weeks, you can't help but wonder why. When you're watching it go on for, you know, we're going on well over an hour with this pursuit. We've seen opportunities. Got to wonder why and what else they are dealing with. That's a big one. Yeah. Right. So in that circumstance, that pit maneuver would actually turn into an escalatory measure with somebody like this, and they don't want to do that. And so that makes a lot of sense. I get that. Now they have a successful spike strip, at least on one side of the vehicle. So if this continues, I imagine they'll set up at least for a spike strip on the left side if they have the chance. If that opportunity arises, I hear there's some chatter about that, so it's a good possibility. But again, those spike strips, when you see them executed well, it's always a little bit of luck too, because you're banking on the suspect following a specific pattern or by happenstance happening to turn and drive right over at any given intersection or what have you. So they are difficult to execute. I think nobody in the country does them as well as law enforcement officers here in Southern California, because the training is so intense and they have so much practice doing it. And so, let's see if they try and spike the left side, because that will really hinder him. I mean, the right tires are gone, but he's still, as the rubber gets chewed off, I imagine eventually those rims will indeed just start to crumble. But that could take a while. I mean, we've seen fully spiked vehicles travel quite a distance in the past. And so, it doesn't always bring it to a stop. Certainly it slows things down, and he was already slow, and he's only really gotten slower in the last 15 minutes. That's a good point. Yeah. If he maintains these slow speeds, you make an excellent point, because the likelihood, the risk of a high-speed crash goes down. Obviously, if he's only traveling 20, 30 miles per hour at the most, that's manageable. So at that point, why increase the risk when they could just wait for the gas tank to empty out? Again, time is always on the side of law enforcement. We become impatient as spectators because we, of course, want to see it come to an end. And if there were lives in danger or they felt it was getting too dangerous, they would use other tactics. But under the circumstances, with what they're dealing with here, you can rationalize why they are just letting him burn off as much fuel as possible and then approach the vehicle at that point. So probably what we're seeing here, because they've, as we mentioned, there have been other opportunities to bring this to an end, and they are opting not to, and I think there's a reason for it. Yeah, and now I'm really curious as to where exactly. I wish we had a pinpoint location. I don't have that, unfortunately, but something tells me it probably started in this very neighborhood. Just a guess on my part, but it did begin in Compton, went up the 710 freeway into the East LA interchange. He got off, was not very familiar with that part of town in East LA, basically ended up on private property in a dead end, went face to face with those officers, a couple of collisions with those CHP units, and then where he saw there was no outlet, just rammed right through some fencing in those parking lots, tearing the fences right off and continuing the pursuit back onto the freeway, ending up on the 710 freeway, back into Compton, back into this neighborhood. And when he got onto Rosecrans and almost made his way into Redondo Beach, sure enough, he turned around and came right back to this general area. For the last 5 minutes, by the way, he's basically been flirting with the border between Compton and Linwood, but he is now in Compton, and he is on Santa Fe Avenue. Once again, all of these streets are pretty familiar to us just because we've been here several times in the last half hour, so they're certainly familiar to him. Yep, the front right and the right rear, both down to the rims. We have seen some sparks flying. I think that's actually coming from the bumper, but we have seen some smoke coming from, I think, the remainder of the rubber. In any event, he is now zigzagging his way once again through another residential neighborhood, and I hesitate to call these random turns because he may very well be more familiar with these turns. So he's not really in any position to outrun these officers, not at these speeds and certainly not in the condition of the vehicle. He knows that he's on borrowed time. He knows better than we do, probably, how this is going to end. And, you know, while as crazy as this pursuit has been at times and as serious as the charges are going to be, this is nothing more than a joyride for the last however many minutes. I mean, this has really been just a casual cat and mouse game with these officers, not getting very far, putting no distance between him and that primary unit. You see some more sparks coming off there. That front right rim is probably going to be the first one to go here. That is really, it's a front wheel drive car, and I don't think, it looks like that rim is already starting to come apart. Yep. Yeah, I mean, while we're on the topic, something very similar happened to me many years ago. Seeing my own car pull out of my driveway on my way home, and seeing my car drive in the opposite direction, only to be found days later in pretty similar condition. Unfortunately, it was an '87 Monte Carlo, but we won't talk about that. Yeah, yelling at somebody. I mean, certainly those officers can't hear him, but he is certainly trying to communicate as he made his way through that intersection there. Very animated. Not what I would expect. I kind of, just based on the driving and the circumstance here, you felt like he was just kind of taking it easy, but he looks angry. He looked very animated there for a minute, and that is not a good sign, I have to say. I mean, that, you know, I was hoping, really hoping that with the turn of events and the condition of the vehicle that he would have some time to calm down, but he is still very energetic and was clearly yelling at somebody there. Not sure what that was all about. In any event, continuing now northbound Long Beach Boulevard. Normally a much busier boulevard, especially on the weekends, but on a Tuesday night, light traffic, not a lot of pedestrians out. You still see the helicopter circling this pursuit. You see some of the neighboring jurisdictions here, the other police departments just kind of, in some cases, blocking intersections, in other cases just kind of waiting in the event that it comes to an end in their jurisdiction. But the vehicle still driving pretty steady here, despite the fact that those right tires are gone. He's managing to maintain about 25 miles per hour now on Long Beach Boulevard. So it has not slowed him down entirely, at least not yet. But if he stays here, maybe they'll have the opportunity. Yep, the phone's still in his hand there. I was about to say, if he stays on this track, certainly a possibility they may be able to set up for another spike strip at least on the driver's side. Yeah. Yeah, in fact, I at least as almost every time that we've even been able to peek through that driver's side window, he's had that phone on, whether he's texting somebody, calling somebody, or like you said, maybe streaming ABC7 at this point, who knows. But that is most likely what those watch commanders are doing, in fact, back at the CHP station, probably watching our very picture right now as he continues to maneuver through South LA here in Compton. This time he's made that turn onto MLK Boulevard, and you see now CHP creating a traffic break behind him as he comes. Now he's almost coming to a stop. The vehicle's slowing down even more, coming up on another intersection and slowing down even more. It's a stop sign, but he's barely going to make it through this intersection. I think the vehicle is starting to give him problems. We've said that before, and he's, gassed it, been able to, continue the pursuit. But I think he's really, really crawling now as he toys with these officers. They are ready to bring this to an end. They're ready to make that felony arrest once he decides to pull over. I don't see him getting very far if he does decide to run on foot. But we'll see what kind of stamina he's got left here. He is certainly, that last time that we saw him was pretty animated behind the wheel of the car. Look at this cross traffic here at the stop sign, continuing through. That driver of that pickup truck certainly able to hear the lights and sirens coming through here, and now he comes back out on the other side of that residential street back onto Long Beach Boulevard. This time though, making a right turn onto the southbound side of Long Beach Boulevard, and once again able to keep that wheel steady and pretty much driving in a straight line at 25 miles per hour, despite the fact that he is missing 2 right tires. Basically down to the rims. The left tires appear to be in good shape, and he's now going through a major red here. That is Long Beach at Imperial Highway, coming up on the 105 freeway. He's been hesitant to take this under the freeway, which would put him into Linwood. But in any event, he's heading in that direction now. So he's made plenty of U-turns, and if history is any indicator, he will probably make another U-turn soon here as he ventures away from the territory that he seems to be most comfortable in. He started this pursuit over an hour ago in this general vicinity. He has ended up here. Hard to imagine that he's going to get too far away from here, but with the pressure behind him, anything's possible, right? So we'll see as he continues northbound, or rather southbound on Long Beach Boulevard. And look at this. Look at this. Still able to accelerate at a decent clip under the 105 freeway, bypassing the entrance ramp there. Had an opportunity to get on the freeway, and now he's going a tick faster. What do we say, about 40 miles per hour? Right around 40, 45 miles per hour as he accelerates underneath the 105 freeway into Linwood. Or am I right about that? Are we still? Yeah, I mean, I guess we're in Compton now. But in any event, southbound Long Beach Boulevard at a faster clip and putting a little bit of distance, maybe more than a little bit of distance, between himself and that primary unit. More sparks flying out of the right side. We'll widen out really quick. I want to get an idea. How far back is that lead unit? We've got one unit about 8 car lengths back, speeding up behind him, able to make the turn. No U-turn, just a left turn now onto Carlin Avenue. Buying from that front right rim. And how many other of those units were able to make that turn? Are they all still behind him? My guess is yes. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 units, 4 CHP units still the lead agency in this pursuit, despite everything we've seen here this evening, and it makes perfect sense when you consider the fact that he has literally rammed into police vehicles during the course of this pursuit. Now making a right turn onto Bullis Road off of Carlin. You see the sheriff's helicopter still up in the air over this pursuit as they circle these intersections, doing really tight orbits, trying to keep close eyes just in case he comes to a sudden stop and is able to run for it. Again, these are narrower streets, less likely that we'll see a pit maneuver here. But California Highway Patrol ready for anything as he makes his way through this neighborhood. Some street vendors here, not a lot of pedestrians out, very light traffic overall, but certainly the danger exists nonetheless. I mean, especially if he's still able to accelerate through some of these intersections, anything is possible, and we certainly don't even want to use our imaginations, because we have certainly seen what some of these people are capable of, and you just hope that this ends in a peaceful fashion, or at least a peaceful resolution as possible. So now North Bullis Road off of Carlin, continuing, slowing down a bit after we saw more sparks flying out of the right side of the vehicle. Yeah, the calculations that he's making here, and certainly some of the behavior that we're seeing, makes you wonder, at least possible and worth raising the question, if he's under the influence. We know the original charge was GTA, Grand Theft Auto, but you know, there's nothing saying that can't be, you know, might be other things at play here. And if he is under the influence, that will certainly play into how this all ends up. But he is doing a circle around this neighborhood now on McMillan Street at Bradfield, coming back up to Bullis, North Bullis Road. If he makes a right turn, that'll be the direction he came in here. But he's basically circling these neighborhoods. I'm not sure if he ran over something there or something fell off the vehicle. But he is speeding over a number of speed bumps, which are a real challenge for those right wheels, especially considering that even those rims are on really borrowed. I mean, at some point, if he accelerates too much, he will eat right through those rims, and eventually you've got nothing left but axle. We're not there yet. You can still see the rims spinning there, but at some point, they will start to come apart. Yeah, especially for a Kia, right? I mean, it's a small, compact vehicle. I mean, these are not heavy-duty trucks, and we've seen semis that have been spiked numerous times, and they can go all night long. We had one maybe just about 6 months ago that went for like 8 hours down the freeway, even at a snail's pace, after every tire on the 18-wheeler was flattened by spike strips. The thing just kept on going. This is not that. This is a small, compact vehicle that is not designed to endure this type of damage. So he's kind of just weaving his way through here. Bradfield, we were here just a moment ago, now turning off at K. He's on Bradfield, and now his next major here is Rosecrans. He'll turn westbound onto Rosecrans, and I imagine, look at that, somebody is aware of it and sticking their cell phone out the window. So you already are starting to see some of the spectators out here familiar with this pursuit, aware of this pursuit, and taking pictures and video while they're at it here. Copy that. Copy, copy. Can they, I got, when they end up back where they started, it starts to become a little bit more predictable, especially for law enforcement if they're familiar with this particular suspect. In this case, they may or may not be aware of his criminal history or his residence, but they do know this is a stolen vehicle out of Compton, started with LA County Sheriff pursuing him up the 710 freeway, and now California Highway Patrol taking this over on the 5 freeway as he got back on the 710 and is now on surface streets here in Compton, Mark. A 100%. Yep. Yeah, it changes everything. It went from a stolen vehicle pursuit to felony assault on a law enforcement officer, and those are very serious charges. In fact, there were more than one collision, so there will be multiple charges just like that, not to mention destruction of property and all of the other infractions, as he's just in the last few seconds even showing a willingness to drive on the wrong side of the road. Now he's on the back on the correct side of Atlantic Avenue, northbound Atlantic Avenue, now picking up a lot more steam. You can see that helicopter flying through the shot. That looked to be CHP. Am I right, Justin? Okay, so still LA County Sheriff, CHP on the way with their shipper. Right now, the Sheriff's Department helping those CHP units on the ground, at least a handful of them now, having no trouble keeping up with him. He has not been breaking any speed records, was doing just above the speed limit on the freeway, but the driving has been extremely reckless. They cannot break the laws that he is breaking, but they can certainly keep up with him at these speeds, despite the fact that he's running lots of red lights. They have their lights and sirens blaring. Code 3 in hot pursuit of this suspect who is refusing to pull over. The passenger seat appears to be empty. We don't know what the situation is in the back seat, but during those collisions in downtown, he did suffer some moderate damage, some heavy front-end bumper damage, as well as his mirrors, which both appear to be hanging by a thread.